2019 general elections, here were presidential candidates having plans for housing sector. The presidential candidate of the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, ACPN, Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, has promised to solve Nigerians' housing problem by tackling poverty. While speaking at a town meeting with presidential candidates on the state of Nigerian housing market in Lagos, the former minister said housing is an important part of lifting people out of poverty. Ezekwesili, who has promised to lift at least 80 million Nigerians out of poverty if elected president, said the right government policies will trigger stronger participation of the private sector in the provision of social housing to the millions of homeless people in the country. Ezekwesili also advocated for the digitization of the procedures in the housing sector and reducing the stranglehold of bureaucracy in the housing value chain. Omoyele Sowore, a presidential candidate of the African Action Congress (AAC, has promised to turn Nigeria into a construction site if elected in the February 16 presidential election. Sowore said, "Government must invest in shelter that every Nigerian must be entitled to a place to lay their heads at night. We are in need of 17 million homes. Over 80 million Nigerians are without homes. We need to set the standard that an average of 5 Nigerians should be entitled to a house, a father, a mother, and at least 3 kids," he added. Sowore also strongly objected to Nigeria's controversial Land Use Act of 1978 and vowed to repeat it as soon as he is president. The governorship candidate of the Action Democratic Party (ADP) in Lagos State, Babatunde Badamasi, said he will deliver no fewer than 10,000 affordable housing units annually to reduce the deficit in the state if elected. Badamasi, a real estate expert, made the promise in Lagos at a debate organized by a non-governmental organization for governorship candidates in the state. Badamasi said the accommodation crisis in the state was befitting of a place like Lagos, promising to deploy the right technology to construct 40,000 housing units over 4 years to tackle the problem.
Housing development program is a good program, and we hope that you continue to be the advocacy for housing finance. Thank you very much.
Housing is globally acknowledged as one of the fundamentally important requirements for existence and survival of human race, as well as a critical component of a country's economy. In that regard, the right to occupy a decent shelter is paramount, and the availability of decent and affordable housing should be one of the distinguishing marks of a developed economy. On the contrary, Significant growth in the housing sector in developing countries including Nigeria seems one of the knotty issues hampering human and national development. The impact of high mortgage interest on the nation's housing delivery has continued to be a source of worry for both operators and prospective homeowners, as currently Nigeria's mortgage banks charge between 19 and 24%, and this could go higher depending on the risk volume, which has affected the real estate's potential as a gold mine for investors. In developed economies, the mortgage industry makes significant contribution to economic development with a single-digit interest rate. In Nigeria, however, this is not the case. The inflation rate and its attendant high mortgage rates impede demand for housing. According to a World Bank report 2008, the contribution of mortgage finances to Nigerian GDP is near negligible, with real estate contributing less than 5% and mortgage loans and advances standing at 0.5% of the GDP. This contrasts with the size of the mortgage finance share of the GDP of various countries. For instance, in the UK, mortgage finance to GDP ratio is about 80%. In the United States, it is 77%. Hong Kong has 50%. Across Europe, the average is about 50%. Malaysia has 32% and South Africa 31%. Many African countries like Botswana and Ghana have 2% mortgage ratio to GDP. In order to overcome the incessant challenges of accessing long-term funds for housing, which is an impediment to home ownership, some housing experts under the aegis of Housing Development Advocacy Network have urged the federal and state government to adopt single-digit interest rates in mortgage loan, even if it requires subsidizing to bring it within the reach of the low-income earners. There is a need to profile local solutions to mortgage financing by considering generational mortgage financing where tenure could be extended beyond the original mortgagee to ensure continuity. Should mortgages become cheaper to finance housing in Nigeria, supply will rise to meet the proclaimed 17 or 21 million housing deficit.
The way things are, you find out that many can hardly feed how much more paying house rent. I have a brother in the Lord that owns up to 4 or 5 buildings, but he can hardly pay his children's school fees because the tenants are not paying. So it's quite tough, it's not easy. They have affected them, no money, the salaries are nothing to write home about. So these are one of the reasons why many don't pay. And I tell you that it's no longer enviable being a landlord in a place like Abuja, because a tenant may come in, pay you for 1 year or so. Then it's like saying, come box out the remaining years, because they hardly pay, the money is not there, and they will be the first to take you to court.
The situation of this country, it makes people, they find it difficult to pay their rents. And I have one of apartment in Mararaba Nyanya. The man cannot be able to pay. More than 2 years now, the man cannot pay. By the time we take the case to the court, they say you will be paying us small before you can pay for the 2 years. At the end of the day, my husband told them that he doesn't want them to pay again. The problem is for them to leave the place, for us to see somebody that will enter. Up to today, since when they left the place, there's nobody that can enter that apartment again. So the situation of this country is too bad. It's too bad. So we don't know what else are we going to do. We need somebody that will help the masses.
The economic situation now is quite challenging, for the income earners, especially because we in this private sector, we are not finding it easy too, because there's no money in circulation. It's when there's money in circulation that we can make profit out of whatever you are doing. For the rent issue, paying rent in Abuja now is a problem because the landlords are increasing their rent, the fees, and the charges they are putting on their houses these days because of the cost of materials for building. We understand, and the low labor, the cost of labor too is telling on them. So when you add all these things together, all will now come on the tenants. When they add it together, it's on the high side. So it's quite challenging. We are not finding it easy at all.
The economic situation has not been that good. The society has said this is not what any Nigerian wish Nigerians to be, but unfortunately this is the situation we found ourselves today, and it's obvious that the leadership of our dear nation, they are not doing their best, and their best is not best enough in any way. Because of, to start with, if you watch our economic situation from the beginning to the end, you discover that the leadership, they don't even have an economic idea, and it's obvious that they are ideologically switched off when it comes to economic affairs of the nation.
My name is Munia Tagma. I encourage you to watch Housing Development.
Good morning, Flora. It's good to be with you. It's already started, actually. It's underway in the various zones. The competitions have been held in the southwest and northwest zones already. During the coming week, it will also take place in the north central zone, northeast, southeast, and south-south. The winners will come together along with vocational practitioners from various other sectors, because the National Board for Technical Education is involved in the expo part of the program to showcase their skills, and we expect that the best of them will have the opportunity to go further. We're actually looking at a situation where these champions, as we can call them, will be able to compete with other artisans across the world stage during the World Skills Championship. No, they're not the same thing, but they're going to run side by side. The Skills Expo component is, like I just mentioned, aimed at affording the other sectors, just like the construction sector, the opportunity to showcase what they do. So we're expecting people from the leather products industry, creative arts, hospitality and tourism, automobile, to come in and also showcase their skills. The World Skills Championship actually takes in about 300 trades. For the construction sector, we are focusing on 7 trades. The 2 programs will be running side by side at the old parade ground, Abuja, between the 28th and 30th of January 2019. Okay, the first part of it, or the main attraction, is actually the skills competition, which will feature artisans in the construction trades, plumbing, carpentry, masonry, steel fabrication, electrical, tiling, painting and decoration. That's immediately after the opening ceremony. There will be various stands where the artisans, the champions from the various zones, will be able to put together some part of their work to showcase their skills, and it is from this that the best will be picked. Alongside that, there will be an artisan summit, which will feature lectures and presentations by experts. The focus again will be on the construction sector. The best of the best will be getting a prize, mouth-watering prize of 1 million naira. There is also a prize for the best female artisans, and I'm happy to say that we are recording a lot more interest amongst the women. Young women are now considering the construction trades as an option, and in this area we might be leading the rest of the world very soon. There is a special prize donated by Hydraform of 500,000 naira for the best female artisan. Other contestants for the other trades, the individual trades, will take a prize of 250,000 naira each. This will be alongside certificates of competence, medals that they will earn, and tools that have been donated by our partners from various sectors.
In area of housing, from the president or from presidential candidates and also gubernatorial candidates, I will expect that they should have concrete policies, explainable, how they intend to provide housing for the civil servants, for the public servants. It must be a conscious policy. So how do they intend to do that? Providing housing for your own staff. 1. 2, they should come up with concrete knowledge and policies or strategies, how they intend to address the infrastructural decay. We're talking about renewal of infrastructure. We've had roads now that are 40, 50 years old. Every building or structure has a lifespan. We can improve on it, we can extend it a bit, but sooner or later it must come to an end. But there must be plans to renew them. especially in Lagos. Kata Bridge, Eko Bridge, Third Mainland Bridge. The Third Mainland Bridge is, we'll say was the latest. Third Mainland Bridge now is about 34 years old. So we're talking Eko Bridge and Kata Bridge over 50 years old. Any moment from now, if we don't do something to replace or renew those bridges or reduce pressure on them, Lagos is going to be in a state of chaos. As of now, unfortunately, many gubernatorial candidates are looking at even solving gridlocks in traffic management. Yes, it's a good solution, but the ultimate is to look for solutions for infrastructure renewals. How do they intend to do this? Likewise, the federal government, hospitals, universities. How do you intend to renew the infrastructure that have been put in place for over 50 years? Or else there'll be a time when all this will collapse. Then we start doing a fire brigade approach. And that's Nigerian style, which is unusual, which is unfortunate. We should stop using fire brigade approach to solve housing problems. Social housing. That is the most important thing for all governments to follow. In the last 25 to 30 years, the government of Nigeria has taken their hands off housing, that they don't need to provide houses, that houses should be for the private sector, and they are always calling for PPP. The model of PPP that is being used is the PFI, Private Finance Initiative, PFI model of PPP. It has failed completely in Nigeria. It doesn't work. One, because of limited sophistication in that aspect, and also our exposure. So that aspect is not working. We should find other solutions. But the federal government and the state government must know they must provide social housing, not mass housing. Housing for their own staff, housing for civil servants, for public servants. A public servant is in employment for 35 years and he retires. He doesn't know where he's going to put his head. But government must know somebody having served you for 30 years, 35 years, must live with a house, with a roof over his head. So we must impress it. The government must come back to this realization and provide social housing.